Hello friends, in today's video we will see how we create a test strategy document in PowerPoint template. You must have seen the strategy document of 20 pages and 30 pages which is in a Word document. But today I'm going to show you how you create a similar document yet more powerful in a PowerPoint template. Why I'm saying powerful is because if your project is so critical and so complex, then definitely in the beginning of the program and the project itself, you have to walk through your test strategy to your stakeholders. Those could be your business team, those could be a leadership team, management team, and walking them through and convincing them on the testing approach with a 20-page document is not going to work. That never works. So you have to transform your test strategy to a PowerPoint template and make it so powerful that you can leave the right message to your stakeholders, to your team, to your audience, to your management, and you get a required support from them. So we'll cover each and every topic of the test strategy, which should be a part of test strategy if you're making a good test strategy document. I'll show you various slides created for those topics. This complete PowerPoint slide deck, including every single slide, is completely editable format. You can reuse them based on your project and program. The link to download this PowerPoint template is given in the description section. You can download from there and just do a plugin with your project and program requirement. So let's start. You see my screen here. So let me quickly cover the index part. Today in this test strategy document, we'll discuss on project background, then scope, then testing approach, schedule, tools, environment and test data, then a couple of very critical sections from project management and program management perspective, which are assumption and dependencies, your risk and mitigation plan. Then we'll talk about roles and responsibilities, testing deliverables, entry and exit criteria, and your last slide is Q&A. So let's continue on this. The next slide is your project background. So if you see, it's a completely editable slide. I have created a section here. So it's a editable template. As a very first slide in a test strategy document, you have to set the project background, you have to set the objective and such things. So this is a placeholder for that. You can update this slide based on your project background, based on your goal and objective for your program. Okay, that's very first slide, but it is very much needed to set the context to your audience. So you can put it here. It could be 8 to 10 line of brief or 2 paragraph or 1 paragraph. Perfectly fine. You just need to tell about a brief on the project background. Continue and moving to next slide, which is my scope. So it's very important that you call out what is in scope and what is out of scope. So the test strategy should contain your in scope item, and you see it's a template here. If you have a large program which has multiple applications, so you can mention application 1, a brief about it, and 2 and 3 and 4, and similarly other applications can follow in. If it's a one application having multiple large size features, instead of application 1, you can say feature 1, feature 2, feature 3, feature 4, and a brief about that feature. That will work. If you have different modules in your application which you want to cover as part of your in scope, then you can mention module 1, module 2. So it all depends what is the scope of your program and the project, and accordingly you can update this slide. It's a placeholder slide. So you set the background and then you tell about what is within that program and the project is in testing scope, because not everything will be testing scope, but what exact is in your testing scope, you have to call it out, and then you have to let your management know, or business know, or executives know, or your team know. Okay. Moving to third slide, which talks about what is my scope for type of testing. So in a testing project, there could be variety of testing. You could do system testing, system integration testing, automation testing, web services testing, performance testing, regression testing, security testing. There could be rollback testing. There could be penetration testing. There could be n number of testing. But what is important is that you tell your audience that these are the things which is gonna be part of my scope. You can put it with the tick mark and a green circle, and whatever you feel is not part of your testing, just cross them here so that everybody understand that as a QA team, as a testing team, these things will be out of scope. Then you can add some brief remarks about all these testing over here. So that's a third slide. It's a completely editable slide. You can add or remove the rows, add the rows, and so. So let's move to next slide, which is about testing approach. This is one of the most important slide in a test strategy document, because that exactly will tell, as part of this project or program, how you're going to test this application. Okay, so my recommendation is always that for a testing approach, you have to come up with some sort of architecture diagram or flow diagram, because visualization is important. If I give 10 bullet points to someone for him to understand, that's not going to work. But at the same time, if I can create some sort of visualization, okay, about your project or program or various modules or application, and then try to explain how you're going to test it, that's always works. So highly recommended that you create a sort of visualization. For this video, I have created a sample diagram here, and the reason I have added a sample diagram so that you can correlate with the project or the program in your project. Okay, there will be architecture diagram. You can try to correlate with it. So if you see, there is a .com website, there is a UI, and then there is an application server. When that there is a business logic written, we have a database integration, then we have message queue, then we have external system. Now this .com or the UI is not going to talk to application server directly. There is a web service call in between, and there is a load balancer sitting in between. Very simple architecture diagram. You will have your own or probably a lot of complex architecture diagram. But for this video, I'm just trying to explain how you put your testing approach forward. So with this architecture diagram, if I am letting my audience know what I'm going to test versus what I'm not going to test, so that comment is written here. So abc.com application testing will be done for all the screens. So this is my scope. I'm going to test all the screens. They are web services in a scope. So those web services can be unit tested using SOAP UI and similar other tool. So what I'm saying here is that is not part of testing team scope. That probably will be done by development team as part of unit testing. Testing team will test these web services as part of integration between .com and application server. They will not test these services in isolation. This is what has been written here. Web services testing will be done as part of integration testing. Services will not be tested in isolation. So you're letting your team know, your management know, your leadership know that these web services might be available early. But from testing team perspective, we are not going to test them in an isolation way. When they are integrated with the UI and the application server, then we are going to test it. Load balancer testing is out of testing scope. There will be certain message in the message queue. So we'll test the retry mechanism, retention mechanism, how many messages can be processed. We will test a communication between message queue to external system. This is what is written here. We will do performance testing of the UI for the database for the application server. So you can just add those bullet points. Once you have an architecture diagram of some sort of visualization in front of you, then you add a commentary out of it that what you're going to test versus what you're not going to test. It is going to be very easy for your audience, for your team to understand what is my testing approach and what is my testing scope within it. So again, if your architecture diagram is so complex, so big in nature, probably you can split that into multiple small visualization and diagram, and then try to explain every single module or feature or application testing. And then at the end, you can have a large or the full architecture diagram, and you can cover how it will be tested so that it makes sense. Okay. Again, reiterating, this slide is very important. I have seen people for testing approach, they add 10 or 20 bullet points, which doesn't make sense. People are not able to make sense out of it. Always create some sort of visualization diagram. Make complex thing in a simplified way, and then let your audience understand it, and definitely you'll get a good feedback. If they don't get it, if they don't understand it, you're not going to get a feedback which is not going to be helpful either for you or for the team. That's very important slide. Once your testing approach is sort of high level, you explain this, then you can add another slide about the testing approach which continue on the test scenarios. So you can list down that what are those key scenarios which you are going to test as part of your testing approach. If scenarios are, let's say 10, 20, 30, 40, probably you can add them in a slide, and you have to just add key scenarios. If those are large in number, probably you can add them into Excel sheet and append as your object that Excel sheet in the slide. But it's possible. Always try to go for test scenarios after this slide, so that you can make a sense whatever you said in this slide versus what are the test scenarios you're going to test, and then you can get a feedback. These slides go hand to hand. So we discuss about project background, we discuss about scope, we discuss about what are different kind of testing we are going to do, what is my testing approach. Okay, now let's continue. The next important part for your testing strategy is a testing schedule. If you see this slide, I put a calendar at the top here, January to June, assuming it's a 6-month project. Then I have split it into a different features, feature 1, feature 2, feature 3, feature 4. In your case, it might be application 1, application 2, application 3, application 4, or module 1, module 2, module 3, module 4. Add a brief description about that feature, put a very high level scope. Now you see here there are different milestones. So this is my dev milestone, this is my system testing milestone, this is system integration testing, this is regression testing, and this is performance testing. You can see that these are my milestones, and this is where I'm going to finish my system testing, system integration, regression testing. This schedule is for a agile project where you see the incremental delivery is being given and the team is testing it. So this is completely editable slide. You can edit this based on your project schedule and you can update it. I have a separate video for creating a schedule or project plan or program plan, and I'll put the link in the description section. That video covers at length how you build a project plan and program plan and schedule slide. So you can go to that video and look at it. But if you want to reuse this slide, completely editable version of this slide, then here somewhere you'll be getting yourself ready for production deployment, and then you can add a production deployment details here, and then you go live. So this is going to tell your audience how and when the testing is going to start, going to finish, when they will be ready for production, and when the go live can happen. And this will be mapped with your overall project plan, which include your development and many other things also. But at least from testing perspective also, you have to give them insight that what are your testing milestones and how you're going to finish them up on the calendar. Very important slide on the approach and the schedule. Let's continue, and then we see next slide is on tools, environment, and test data. There will be various tools you will use for test management. There will be various environment, like environment for system testing, system integration testing, regression testing, automation testing, performance testing, security testing. So there could be n number of environments. There are various ways of creating test data. It could be a custom scripts. It could be some different system who is going to provide the data. It could be your application through which you want to create a data. So this is just a placeholder slide for tools, environment, and test data. And you can add your details here. It's a placeholder slide. So let's continue our testing strategy. So our next slide is assumption and dependencies. Very important slide, because in any of the program or project or testing engagement, you will have certain assumptions in the beginning, certain dependencies in the beginning, which you cannot sort out. So it's very important that you list them down, make your leadership, make your management team understand, and help you to sort them out. So you can just list them down here, all your assumptions, all your dependencies. If you have more than 5 or 6, you can add another slide for it in a similar way. It's a editable template. Just add them here. And then the other important section is risk and management. So you talk about assumptions and dependencies. Every project will have some risk. Some of them probably you can close in the beginning. Some will be open. Some new will emerge as you continue in your project. So you can add all the risk on this section, mitigation plan on this section, along with owner details. So I put some placeholder here for risk 1, risk 2, risk 3, and so on, mitigation 1, 2, and 3, and so on. It's a placeholder. You can add the risk and mitigation as per your project need. This will be a live document. The risk keep on coming, risk keep on closing. Some might be mitigated, some might not. It will be a live document for risk, for assumption, and for dependency section. If we continue on test strategy, the next is roles and responsibilities. You have a large team, and audience or your leadership or your executive would like to understand what different roles are there, what they are supposed to do. So I have added some of the testing role here, like test manager, test lead, automation engineer, performance engineer, test team, QA analyst or test analyst, and corresponding responsibilities. For example, test strategy document is the responsibility of test manager. Creating weekly status report, enabling the team is a test lead responsibility, and so on. So I have added the most common roles and responsibilities for different roles. You can add more roles here. You can update the roles. You can update the responsibility. That's not a problem. It's a editable slide. You can do that. But this slide is important so that everybody understand that within the team, what are different roles and their responsibilities. If we continue on this, the next slide is testing deliverables. That from testing team, what are different deliverables which will be delivered, who is the owner for them, and what will be the frequency. For example, test strategy document. This will be created by test manager, and for every product feature deployment, you will get a test strategy document. Similarly, you will have test execution report, daily weekly status report, your health report, your QA sign-off report, and similarly there will be other deliverables also. You can add them here. You can add the owner. You can add the frequency. It's a placeholder slide. Most probably all these will fit in any of the program and project, but still you can customize it based on your project and program need. If we continue to next slide, the entry and the exit criteria. For every testing engagement, you will have one entry criteria, that when you will start testing. Some of the examples I have written here. For example, to start the testing, your test scenario should be signed off from business team. You should have a stable code version with the unit testing done. You should have all the connectivity established. You will have all the required tools and test data available. You can add more here. So these are the entry criteria to start your testing. Similarly, because this will help you to seek help from your leadership and executives to enable this part if your testing is getting delayed. Okay. Second is exit criteria. If your testing is done, how will you say my testing is done? There will be certain criteria. For example, you have given a demo to product owner and all the user stories are signed off. There is no blocker defect open. You tested the deployment, you tested the rollback. You have given a demo to your operations team and they have given a go ahead that you can go and deploy into production. Similarly, there could be more based on your project and program. You can add more things here. But this is important so that if your testing is not happening on time, you can say these are my entry criteria. If those are not met, then testing cannot be started on time. And if these exit criteria are met, then I have to get a sign off on testing. So very important slide. So with this, you will move to Q&A slide, which was my last slide. If I just go back and try to brief what we have seen, okay. So we have seen the project background, very first slide. Then you talk about the scope of your testing, the application in the scope, features in the scope. Then you talk about type of testing, system testing, integration testing, performance testing, and so on. So very important slide. You have to talk about testing approach. You have to talk about tools, environment, and test data. You have to talk about testing deliverables. You have to talk about entry and exit criteria. You have to talk about risk, assumption, and dependency. So everything which should be part of a very good test strategy document. All the slides are listed here. All the slides are completely editable slide. The full PowerPoint package is placed on a share path. The link is given in the description section. You can download from there. And I'm sure if you follow this, this will be a complete package which you can present to your audience, to your leadership, to your business team, to your executives, and you get a required support because you are able to explain them what are your entry criteria, what are your exit criteria, what is your scope, what is your testing approach, what is your schedule. Anything gets deviated, you get a full support because you have given a full transparency to them. I hope you have got the good insight. Still, if you have any questions, please feel free to put your question in the comment section, and I'll be happy to answer them all. Thank you very much for your time.